Jon Cooper, Ourlad's Guide to the NFL Draft, on with us last week. He'll be on with us here in just 2-3 seconds, and then also with us next week on the draft to break down various players' positions and focus a little bit as well, of course, on the Big 12 prospects, but others around the country. Jon, thank you very much for your time. Now, we understand there's a chance the quarterback, there's a run right off the top, and sometimes there is always a run. Is this year even more I'm not sure, frenetic when it comes to how many quarterbacks are taking those first 5 picks?
Yeah, I think 4 is realistic. There was a time I thought maybe one of those guys would fall out of the top 10, but I don't see that happening at this point. There's just too many quarterback-needy teams, and, there's some fits there too.
Do you think that the 5th quarterback could be in the 3rd round, like Hendon Hooker or Tanner McKee, somebody like that?
I think Hendon Hooker would go very possibly in the 2nd round. That's just my opinion. I mean, I watched him a lot, and I'm not so sure if he didn't have the injury that we wouldn't be talking about a first-round pick.
Who is the best quarterback that's not getting much discussion? I guess like a second wave of guys outside of the premier guys that are getting all the talk.
That second wave starts with probably going to the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, in our view. The guy that always sticks out to me is Aiden O'Connell from Purdue. I've seen a lot of him. I've been watching defensive backs play against him for the past, 2 seasons. And, he doesn't have the mobility you look for in an NFL quarterback, but he can move. I mean, he can. You watched the Tennessee game, a couple of years ago, the bowl game. He moves out of the pocket well. He senses the rush pretty well. He's not a burner, but the thing is, he likes to stand in there and throw it. And the weakness he has is he'll put it under. He'll tries to force the ball sometimes into tight windows instead of doing something with his feet. I mean, yeah, that's not his style. That's not what he does well. But he's very accurate. He's got decent velocity. He played in a relatively pro-style offense, and I could see a guy like him going in the 4th, 5th round, being a really good backup for somebody that can play if needed and maybe develop into a starter down the road.
The number of quarterbacks that could be drafted right off the top, is that because of the teams that need quarterbacks, and there's always a chunk of them, or is that also to do with Jalen Carter and what happened with him and opening up maybe one of those top 5 picks or so?
I thought that. I'm not so sure. We still have Carter in the top 5. I know all the, there's 2 issues there. But if you turn on the tape and watch him play, I mean, that's what I'm going on. This is a phenomenal football player somebody, I got to believe that there's a coaching staff that has talked with him and feels like, hey, we can get a hold of this kid and we can turn him into something really special. Now, I could be wrong about that, and I'm sure there's maybe half the teams don't agree with that. But I don't see him falling too far out of that top 5. I think he's still going to be a top 10 pick. But I still think those quarterbacks are going to be gone, 4 of them gone by 8, Carter notwithstanding.
Jon, there are 2 running backs that might go in the 1st round, and Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs. We talked about them. After that, it seems like it's a pretty good position for teams like the Cowboys or the Bucs or somebody who needs a running back. Who do you like the most after those top 2?
Well, obviously, Gibbs is a stud, but there's a bunch of guys that down the line that would be in the 2nd, / 3rd round. The guy that comes to mind for me is a little bit farther down the line is a kid from East Carolina, Mitchell. I really like his speed. I like the fact that he can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he's a hard runner. But he's not probably the every down back, that maybe you're looking for. I'm just looking at here. Zach Charbonneau from UCLA, hard runner, big kid. He's a guy that we think could be a really quality 2nd round pick. There's a couple other guys too that are in that same mold as he is. Devin Shane is the fastest back in this draft. That's a kid that, if you're looking for straight speed, he's a guy that you're going to take a look at. We really like him. As far as just a guy that if you take him out there, he can run. I know you've probably seen him, where you're at. Tank Bigsby from Auburn is a hard runner. He's got decent speed. They don't call him Tank for nothing. He can make yards after contact. And a guy down the line just a little bit that I really like is Tajay Spears from Tulane.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the way he plays. I like the fact that he can make yards after contact. He's got decent speed. He's just a hard-running guy. He's going to make he's the kind of guy you want. You need a first down, give it to this kid, and he might break it besides. Like him, there's some guys there that I think are really good players. That most of the guys I mentioned are, third, fourth round picks probably. Charbonnet could go in the second. Shane possibly could go in the second. But after Gibbs, you're looking at lower second round into the third and fourth round guys. But they're solid players.
A-Chain, the kid from A&M, the young man who can, like you say, just blast it.
I call him a Shane.
That's okay. But yeah. Does he remind you – because a lot of time when you see a diminutive running back, people think about like Darren Sproles or whoever else. Is he more of maybe even more durable, more of an every down guy, or do you have to kind of pick and choose with him?
Well, I think in the running back world today, most teams have two guys that they're using. They like to have one guy that can pound away and one guy that can get outside. And I think Shane is your guy that can get outside. He can run inside as well, but he's getting him in the outside zone, getting him wide. He's got a chance to hit a home run for you. I think he's more of an every down back, but yet I think still he's going to be most effective as part of a two-headed monster at the running back position.
We had somebody in the chat room ask me, and you mentioned quarterbacks, and I don't know about his chances of being drafted or whatever, but he had a great run, an overachiever in Max Duggan at TCU.
You can't not like this kid. He's hard not to like in terms of you look at what he overcome. The thing I like, is the fact that he was basically benched and said, "No, I'm not going to transfer. I'm going to be the best backup quarterback I can be, and I'm going to try to still be the starter." And lo and behold, that's what he did. I mean, he's a gamer. He's the kind of guy I'd like to have on my team. I'd say he's in that fifth round conversation as well. And, we like him probably better than some other people do. We've got him at number 11 just because we think he's the type of guy that will make plays. He can run. He's not the greatest thrower. He doesn't have the greatest accuracy, but, he's a playmaker type quarterback. And, somebody's going to draft him and somebody's going to have a guy that's going to be a quality backup that they're going to try to develop into something more than that.
Jon Cooper, Ourlad's scouting service, Ourlad's guide to the NFL draft.
John, how do you feel about the cornerbacks in this draft?
I think they're not necessarily what you would call elite, cornerbacks as far as in comparison to maybe some other years, but there's a lot of them. There's a lot of depth. If you want a corner, you're going to be able to find one in this draft that has redeeming qualities, all the way down the line. I mean, the top 4 or 5 that could be in the first round, even they have some holes, but the top 2 are guys that I think could be potentially top 10 picks in Gonzalez and Witherspoon. I mean, who do you want? Witherspoon, extremely tough, and we haven't seen him run yet because of the injury. We're a little nervous about that, but Gonzalez, he had a phenomenal year for Oregon. And climbed up the charts. So, those are, 2 really good players. But there's some guys down the road that can play as well.
John, going back to TCU and just in the Big 12 running back room in general, you talked last week about Quentin Johnston. You just talked about Max Duggan. I think you also hit on Trevius Tomlinson last time as well. But how much have you been able to see of the running back, Kendre Miller, from TCU, had a tremendous year. Unfortunately, was a little dinged up there towards the end. And in line with that, if you would, just kind of a two-parter here with Big 12 backs. Smokey mentioned diminutive, size coming into play. Deuce Vaughn, an all-world everything back, not the biggest guy in the world. Your thoughts on Kendry Miller of TCU and Deuce Vaughn of K-State?
Well, Kendry Miller, has got decent size beside. He's 220, and he's a kid that we think, he's probably a mid-round pick, but he's a solid football player. He can run. He's got decent speed. And running back is not that priority position for a lot of NFL teams anymore. But as a mid-round pick, I think he's got a chance to play for you. Deuce Vaughn is one of those guys that is got great speed. He's not the biggest, I guess the diminutive, if you want to use that term, not the biggest guy in the world. At 176 pounds, 5'0", 5'6", from the combine, but he can run. He's got tremendous what we call wiggle, agility in traffic. If he gets out on that corner and he sticks his foot in the ground, he's a tough guy to find. And sometimes that lack of size works to his advantage. We've seen some pretty good backs that have been pretty small, that have great speed and great agility. And that's the kind of back Deuce Vaughn is. So, he's not an every down back, but he's a guy that is going to be on your football team, and somebody's going to draft him in that middle round area, and he's going to be a player.
You joined us last week for the first time. We've enjoyed it. Have you again next week. Where are teams now? And you hear about their draft board. There are still pro days going on. Baylor's is coming up around the corner. There's a lot to still get to. In your opinion, how does an NFL team start to piece that together, or when? And when do they have to have it done?
Well, they've got a board, established already, but that's always, a work in progress. It's a working board, if you will. And when the pro days are all done, most teams bring all the scouts in and the coaches, and they sit down and they go through these players and they set their board. They've got a preliminary board, and then they've got a board that they're going to finalize. And they spend, a good couple of weeks going over each position and stacking those players according to where the grades are from the scouts and according to what the coaches have been told. The secondary coach, watch the corners on tape. Tell us what you think. Watch the safeties. The running back coach, he's going to watch the running backs. And they're going to come back with reports, and they're going to kind of cross-check each other. And then they'll set their board. And then there's some last-minute things that come in the week of the draft. It used to be, I don't know if it's still that way, that they'd have the security report would come in, and it would be, is there any baggage in this guy? Does he have outstanding warrants for arrest? Is he doing things that he shouldn't be, that we picked up on? And the medical report will come in, the final medical report, which will say, is there something in this guy's history that makes it not likely that he's going to be able to play, or he's not going to have very much longevity. And those kind of things can have a factor. And sometimes it's just a little worry. And it's enough to drop a guy. The guy that, I think of last year is Nakobe Dean, who potentially had, they believed the need for a surgery. And we had him as a first-round pick, and we're wondering what happened. Well, on that medical report, something must have come back, because he went all the way down into the third round before he got picked. So those are the kinds of things that last-minute things that come up that change the board. But it's a work, like I said, it's a work in progress.
Jon, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Look forward to next week with you. Jon Cooper, Ourlad's scouting service, Ourlad's guide to the NFL draft. Enjoy that. Thank you, some of you on the chat room.